Welcome everybody. It's July 6th. This is SIG Windows weekly meeting. This is a CNCF meeting. So if you have, we follow the code of conduct. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to myself or any of the other leads in Kubernetes, and we will address them. Welcome. It doesn't look like we have a ton of new folks. I think I recognize everybody's name. Does anybody want to quickly say hello or say anything before we move on to announcements? All right, cool. I welcome back Mark. Mark has been on vacation for an extended period of time, so excited to have him back and joining the community. Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Do you want to say anything?
Nope. I'm probably going to be catching up on things for the next couple of days, but yeah, glad to be back.
Excellent. Yeah, really excited to have you back. So, yeah, Thursday is code freeze. So make sure if you have any PRs open to get those pushed through. I know there's a couple that we're tracking, Perry in particular for the host process. I think we need to get that in so that we can be able to run CNIs. Did you just drop that link in?
I think that's the one, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we can chat about that in a second, but are there any others that we need to be tracking? I know there's several that we're watching, but
I can definitely say that the node log is not making it the way the other bug kind of sucked away all my time.
Yep. And I saw you posted an update on that. So we're still having a conversation internally to see how we can handle that, but maybe we can chat about that here in a minute too.
Okay, yeah, sounds great.
Cool. Any other announcements that anybody wants to bring up? No, okay. So I think this is sort of kind of an announcement. Also just wanted to bring awareness and say thank you to everybody that worked on it, but we have our SIG Windows DevTools repository was created last week, and it's now, I'll just open it up here. So I think we're calling it a batteries included development environment for Kubernetes and Windows. So thanks to Sladen and Friedrich for driving that, and Jay. It's really great to see, and I know that there's continued work being done on that. So does anybody want to say anything? Is Friedrich on the call or Jay?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of interest stuff in there that, just FYI folks, there's an issue with the way we can use it for development, and I've tested it on some things, but there is a little issue with the way the CNI works. And so I found it's actually a bug with Antria and the way that Antria deals with multiple NICs. And so I'm going to I've pushed some changes up this week in there. But I also wanted to thank Perry for being our first customer and getting the host process stuff tested on there, which is really cool. I want to add Calico into it. So if anybody's looking for a quick little project to help us out, adding an alternate CNI would be, I think, relatively easy to do because we already have Antria working. And so it's like there's a template you could follow. If not, I'm going to add it this week though. Maybe Luther's going to do it because I see him here. I see him lurking in the Zoom chat. I see him in the Zoom meeting. And I know he likes Calico. But anyways.
I've had some history.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. I'm not sure who added this, but is there?
Oh, I just added that. That's related to what I just mentioned. And it's a kind of a granular CNI issue. So maybe since we don't have a long agenda, we can go to the next item. And if folks want to dig into how CNI works on the dev environments with me, we can do that after.
Okay, sounds good. Let's open this one up. This is the host process. So Harry, you want to go for this?
Yeah, so while I was doing the testing of the host process sort of functionality on 122, what I noticed was that there was no volume stuff in there yet. So Danny kindly went through and started adding that. But when he was doing it, what we noticed was that it was automatically trying to mount the etc host file from Linux into Windows, and obviously couldn't do that because it wasn't under the symlinked path. So what I put in here was basically just a revert of some stuff that was taken out last year, I think. Basically, what it looks like is we used to always skip the mount etc host file. Then it was changed to say if it's container D, then we do it. But I don't think it's actually doing anything for us in Windows. And so I thought, well, we just explicitly skip it because I don't think it would help us even if we had it mounted. But yeah, so it was just sort of looking for feedback. I just wanted to bring it up and understand why, if ever, we would want to mount the etc host file from Linux on Windows, or whether we should be mounting something to do with the host file, or whether, I think, James, you made a suggestion that we add it into single file mapping, but I wasn't really sure if we added it there, whether that would break something else. So I was trying to limit the impact or the blast radius of what I was doing by just putting it as a single liner there, but I don't know why anyone else kind of thinks.
The etc host file is still being used by Windows, right? I mean, you can still write hosts and stuff like that there, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Basically, Kubernetes and Kubelet writes such a file for every single container and then mounts it into the container, to say so. So yeah, we've also added this file into Windows because Containerd is able to mount single files into into the containers, like Docker. So we added that just to be more feature complete, to say so. I mean, that's what I always thought, that that particular file is still useful, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So I was under the impression that it would only work if it was on host network, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've missed something, because I didn't think anything supported host networking at the moment, unless I'm wrong.
I might be wrong about this, but I think Kubelet also maps in Kubernetes services into those etc hosts file. So, for example, you might be able to find their direct mapping and the cluster IP for a particular service you've defined in the namespace of the pod. But I might have to double check that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I asked because I have no idea what to do now.
But it does make sense to skip that part for host processes because it's basically just a host process. It doesn't have to mount an etc host file, right? Since it's supposed to run on the host itself.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't, because wouldn't we just overwrite some files?
Yeah, we would overwrite the host.
Like if there's multiple host process containers, they would potentially collide.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think Claudio's understanding of the services getting mapped was my assumption too, that the services get mapped into there. So they would be useful on Windows, but we should probably double check.
Okay, if it's I will have to, if that's the case, then we'll have to try and use the API to kind of skip it if it's a host network container. But other than that, I'm not 100% sure on other ways of fixing this unless we did it inside containerd, I guess, somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think the major point here is that for host process containers in Windows, it just doesn't make sense to have have this file, because it would conflict across all the different processes that are running on the host. And so I think we need to skip it here. I guess now that I think about it, maybe single file mapping support isn't exactly what we want to skip it in, but maybe something else up here. But I think we still want to skip or include that other file into the.
Would we still want a way to get like those routes all set up for host process containers? We might have to investigate that or for in the next release. Because I could see that being useful. But yeah, I think.
To get single file mapping mounted.
Or no, to have the updated host files for host process containers. But I think we might need to just start some investigations with that soon, and then figure out what to do. What the best thing to do is.
I guess if it was. I guess if it was host network, then you could just create a symlink from the pods etc host to the one that's on the host. But then I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're not real containers in the same sense, are they? They're kind of processes on the host that kind of run in a kind of sandbox. So I don't know how. Part of me feels like it's already going to be using the host file anyway.
Yeah, I think we should do some research here.
Cool. Okay, so I need to try and find a way of being able to skip this if it's a host network container on Windows, but not any other time, which is slightly more tricky, I guess. And I have until when did you say, James? Friday. Thursday. All right. Okay.
Well, I mean, we can skip it right in here. I think we have
Yeah.
access to that information, and I think it's not necessarily host network, but host process, right?
Right. Well,
Yeah, I was about to say it should be host process. Host network, you needn't be a host process, right?
but at the moment you can't have a host process without a host network, and
Yeah,
I thought
that's true.
host networking doesn't work on Windows anyway.
That's true.
Yes. Yes to everything.
But I think for correctness, we should say host process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair point.
And comment heavily.
Yeah. Okay. If anyone has any ideas on how we could change this before Thursday, please feel free to just throw it my way, and I don't mind doing the typing work, but I have it'll just save me some time. But if we don't know, then I'll carry on looking.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
You're on mute, James. So.
Yep, I think we at least have a path forward for 122.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just a question regarding the code freeze. The code freeze also includes bug fix freeze, because in other projects they are a bit separate.
No, code freeze is just feature implementation. So if there's bugs.
Technically, this already merged in Kubernetes, and this falls under the category of a bug, right?
Yes. Yep.
Those are usually okay until test freeze, unless things have changed.
Yeah, so I think this is gonna be fine even if you finish later than Friday. It should still end up in 122.
Okay, I'll make sure that I have a bug label. I do have a bug label. Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Otherwise,
from me.
Jay. Oh, somebody say something?
That was me. I just said not from me.
Jay, do you want to go with default gateway?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, does anybody else have any other stuff before I sort of, you know, monopolize this this call?
I mean, the only other
Um,
thing is if James has any updates on that other bug I was working, but we can even do that offline on over Slack, I guess. The
Yeah, I don't
projected
have any
volume.
yeah, I don't have any updates on the predicted volume thing. I saw what you had, but I think there's still a discussion happening internally on figuring out what is the expected behavior. So
Okay, yeah, sounds good. I'll keep my eyes open for that then.
yep, try to get something back.
And just so that we're clear, James, like there's nothing I can do now to fix this, right? I've exhausted all my attempts to sort of fix this with what I know at the moment.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Thanks, James. Sorry, Jay, take over.
No problem. Thanks, Arvin. So the default gateway issue, what I found was so after setting some of the interest stuff up in the dev environments, I found that the Antrea agent was restarting, and the reason Antrea agent was restarting is because it wants a default gateway to already exist on the node IP of the Kubernetes node address. So, so I started looking at why, and it turns out that I filed an issue in upstream Antrea, and they're working on it. It turns out that the reason it wants that is because it extends HNS. So when it goes and it creates an HNS network or HCN network or whatever we call it, and it creates an HCN network and through the HCS shim API, and then after it makes that network, it then creates an OVS extension that it gloms onto that network, I guess, and then it runs HCN in transparent mode. So my first question is, what exactly is HCN transparent mode on the way to my next question?
That's a question that I might be able to answer. Transparent mode means just it's.
I partially asked that question because I saw that you were here, Jocelyn, so I figured you
So basically, transparent mode means that you're using just a simple Hyper-V switch. So HCN networks typically means a construct around a Hyper-V switch and a set of endpoints. That's what roughly what HCN networks are. Transparent is the simplest in the sense that it's just one single external Hyper-V switch.
one single Hyper-V switch.
Yes.
Question: since it's using a Hyper-V switch, do you need Hyper-V enabled on that node in order to use that HCN transparent mode?
I believe yes, you do.
I think you only need like it enabled for like a second or something, right, Perry? It's like you need to enable it and then you don't use it or something. Like you don't need nested virtualization to work. You just need Hyper-V to work.
Yeah, you only need the APIs
Yes.
to be loaded. You don't necessarily need all of Hyper-V.
You don't need the
Sure.
hypervisor, for example, but you do need the virtual switch bits to be present on the machine. So the feature has to be enabled.
Yeah, I think enabling the containers feature enables that hypervisor platform feature, which is what's required, right?
Not necessarily. I think you can
Right.
enable container. I think you can enable the containers feature without enabling the hypervisor. But then what happens is you miss a load of the VM switch functionality. I think we've raised this, right? I think we put this on like Windows containers that we wanted a separate API to say enable VM switch rather than.
Yeah, we did. We found an issue, I think, upstream.
Mhm.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do we need then, since, so do all CNIs require you to enable Hyper-V via that API, or is this just some weird Antria thing because we make that HCN extension? Because this
No,
is the HCS shim API that we're calling ultimately.
Yes, yeah, you don't need Hyper-V to be enabled for every HCN functionality. It's just
No.
because you were talking about transparent networks, and I believe transparent networks does require Hyper-V because it's just a representation in the chain of what a Hyper-V external switch is, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right, cool. So anyways, that was a little bit of a sort of interesting detour. It's not really the core problem though. The core problem is we need that whole thing, but ultimately what happens is Antria then goes and it creates that transparent network. And after it creates a transparent network, then so what it wants to do is it wants to then add a it then wants to configure OVS to have an uplink in an open vSwitch route, so that that open vSwitch route's uplink is the default gateway. I'll say this twice, is the default gateway of the IP address of the Kubernetes node. So it uses the kubelet, it uses the API server, it calls the API server, gets the node IP and from the API server, and then it says, okay, I'm gonna go now look up in Windows using get host route or get net route or whatever. I'm gonna PowerShell this and look for this exact IP, and then I'm gonna grab the default gateway associated with this exact IP, and then I'm gonna use that for how I configure Open vSwitch. So there's a problem here because when we spin up in our development environments, our CNI, VirtualBox does a weird thing where it creates a bridge, and that bridge is connected to the default VirtualBox router, but it also creates a private network IP. And then I tried a few things, like I tried to use a public network, but then when Windows Server came up and I tried to use a public network, Windows Server literally had no IP, and I had no idea why. So that didn't really work. And then I tried a few different things and nothing seemed to make it happy. So then I finally hacked up the Antria source code, and I'm testing that now to see if I can just have Antria put some other default gateway in there. But I guess my question is, yeah, go ahead. Feel free to interrupt me because I'm kind of like.
No, I was going to ask if you could start a thread on Slack, and I'll try to get Keith in the discussion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So that these guys can look into it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have someone that could look into it and just, since this is, so Jocelyn said, if you're not aware, our dev environments are literally, you clone them down and you just run make all. You don't have to do anything else. And it'll create them all from scratch. And I think Perry said he got Danny using them too. So it's actually a very, very, it's like one step to reproduce it, right? It's not anything complicated. And I'm happy to hop on a Zoom with them as well. But I will put the details of this in Slack for sure.
Awesome.
And that's all I got. And then since I just got back from PTO, I'm just buried in stuff. So for pairing this week, I do not know if I can drive pairing. Is anybody else want to drive it, or do we want to skip this week and just start back up next week? That's my other announcement. So
I cannot.
that's fine.
Should we just skip this week? I think, because I can't make it either. So unless James wants to run on with.
Why don't we skip this week? I know Slayton won't be here, and so there's just not a lot. Me and Friedrich have our own little thing going on. People are happy to join if they want, but we talk offline about stuff. Unless James, you wanted to run it.
No, it sounds like we should just skip it this week. So sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. We got 2 minutes left. Is there anything else anyone wanted to bring up or mention?
I was just gonna say, I think I can check whether the Windows, if it's going to be on host network, like pod spec host network in that. So I'm going to just basically skip it if Windows host network is selected. Oh, well, if it's host network and it's Windows, then explicitly don't mount it. Is that better than just saying if it's Windows? Does that make
Well,
sense?
you could check for host process, right? That's also there in the spec, rather than host network.
But it didn't.
It should be available at in that same code paths about.
Okay, so do we think host network is the better thing, or do we think it's host process? Do we think host process?
I thought it was host process.
Okay, I think it's get host process, right? That's the function. Something like that. Okay, I'll
Depending
try
on
it.
where it is, yeah.
I think we can do a get host process, and that'll give me if it's true or false. So, okay. Thanks. I'll try that.
It's just a correctness thing, I would say.
Put it this way, if we don't bring it up here, someone will bring it up when I'm trying to merge it anyway. So it's better that people put this now rather than later when I'm trying to force it through.
Good point.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you all next week.
Bye, folks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.